La charla, como ya sabéis, es Deploying Drupal y cómo sobrevivir para contar la historia. No solo voy a hablar de... Yo creo que, bueno, antes de nada, antes de empezar, ¿quién soy yo? Yo soy David Hernández, trabajo aquí en una empresa de aquí de Valencia. Este es mi Twitter, por si queréis mandarme preguntas, insultarme o lo que queráis. Y soy miembro de la Asociación Española de Drupal, presidente hasta ayer. Finalmente me he librado. ¿Y de qué voy a hablar? ¿De qué va esta charla? Esta charla no va de cómo hacer un despliegue de Drupal. No es solo, el despliegue es mucho más que eso. Voy a hablar de eso mismo, de que el despliegue incluye mucho, mucho más. Desde la arquitectura, las herramientas que utilizamos, todo. Entonces, voy a hablar más de buenas prácticas que de despliegues. Es decir, voy a hablar de cómo preparar tu Drupal para que se pueda desplegar fácilmente. Y luego al final, si el tiempo lo permite, hablaré de diferentes métodos de despliegue y si puedo, haré alguna demo. El proyecto. ¿Qué queremos construir? Todo depende de qué tipo de proyecto estamos haciendo. Tenemos de todo tipo. Hay muchos tipos diferentes, desde proyectos grandes, como puede ser la Ciudad de las Artes y las Ciencias, a proyectos pequeños, como puede ser una casa. Pero todos estos proyectos tienen algo en común. Bueno, pueden ser completamente diferentes, pero todos tienen algo en común que nos concierne a nosotros, que es que nosotros tenemos que asegurar la calidad de estos proyectos. Tenemos que asegurar la calidad, tenemos que asegurar de que todo va bien en todo momento. Por ello, tenemos que utilizar unos buenos materiales. Lo que usamos es importante, no es solo cómo lo hacemos, también las herramientas. Dentro de Drupal hay infinidad de herramientas y algunas pueden ser más adecuadas que otras para nosotros. Podemos hacer una casa de madera y funcionará bien, y podemos hacer una casa de papel. Con ambas podemos hacer una casa, pero igual no nos da el mismo resultado. Pero no es solo qué herramientas tenemos, sino más importante es cómo las usamos. Tenemos que utilizar las mejores herramientas y las tenemos que utilizar, tenemos que conocer cómo utilizarlas. Y luego está el proceso de despliegue. Si tenemos las mejores herramientas, las estamos utilizando bien, pero a la hora del despliegue no lo sabemos hacer, todo puede acabar mal. Y si no, el proyecto más pequeño puede acabar mal, pero no importa cómo de grande sea, también puede acabar mal. Así que vamos a hablar de la base. Okay, I'm going to switch to English. I'm going to talk about the project foundations. How do we have to use the tools and what good practices we have to follow. First of all, on the Drupal project is that configuration must be versioned. Drupal stores all the information on the database. That's a really big mistake because we cannot have control over that. We can have different content on dev, we can have different content on live. We need to have this on a separate place. This problem is fixed in Drupal 8, but Drupal 8 is not ready yet, so we have to find different ways to do that. So how do we move all this configuration to the code? First tool, features. Maybe it's not the best one, maybe we could have a better tool, but probably it's the best we have now, even with all the problems it can cause. Hook update and hook install. With hook install, we can prepare all we need on the setup. We can configure everything and we can keep it on the code. Hook update is the same for changes we do later. Strongarm. Strongarm works together with features. Features usually exports configuration like content types, views, panels, context, all that kind of stuff. Strongarm also exports variables. Variables is one of the main tools used by Drupal to store the configuration in the database. A variable can store almost anything, but the Strongarm allows us to export it into a feature. Context or panels. Because, why I'm putting this here? Because this is not a tool for keeping the configuration on the code, but it's a replacement for the blocks system. The Drupal block system, it can work, but maybe it's not the best tool we have. Because it stores so many different things in so many different places. It's probably not the most suitable option we have. So context of panels help us to better specify where a block will be and how the block will behave. And not only that, we can use context or panels with completely different things, not only blocks. So we can completely get rid of the blocks. For that, there is also bin and boxes. Bin, it's like, I think means bin, entity, alternative, something like that. It's like a replacement for blocks, but it's an entity, so it's fully field label, all the advantages it has an entity. Boxes, I think, is quite similar. I really prefer bin. So this is what I recommend. Features, hook update, hook install, strong arm, and context. I'm not saying that probably there are better options for you. It's for the tools I do, the things I do, the projects I do. When I work, this is the things that suits better for me. Maybe for you, if you know better boxes or panels, probably it's better if you use them. They are good tools, but that's my recommendation. Also, there are a lot of different modules that adds extra functionality to features, like features extra, or that I don't really remember right now, but there are a lot of things to improve the features, because features cannot export everything to code. So there are lots and lots of different modules to export more and more stuff. Then we have to structure our code in a correct way in order to be able to do easy deploys. If we have a good structure, probably we will not have to spend a full weekend trying to fix a deploy that went bad. So we have to package our site. We have to prepare a package, not a zip, but something where we can store all we need for the deploy and move it easily to somewhere else. There are a lot of different things. First of all is an installation profile. If you don't know what's an installation profile, it's like a distribution of Linux. Linux, it's the core, but it has more like Debian, Ubuntu. Everything works with the same, but adds more functionality and customize it for you. So an installation profile is the same for Drupal. Probably you have heard about Open Atrium or Code or Open Publish, Commerce Kickstart. But that doesn't mean we cannot create them. We should create an installation profile for us. It's not only because it will help us during the deploys, but also because it will help us to set up different sites for working. For example, if someone arrives new, as a new developer arrives to the team, he will not have to download all the stuff and everything manually. He will just have we will give them the installation profile, just install the site, and everything will be working. DrupalCamp. DrupalCamp is like make files from Linux, but for Drupal. You can create a DrupalCamp file with all the code you need, with all the modules you will use, which versions, which patches you need to add, and it will be kept on just a single file. But not only that, but we can have different DrupalCamps for different environments. We can have a base DrupalCamp for the project, and then we can have a different DrupalCamp that uses the other one, but changes some things. For example, I can have the base one, and then one for development that will download the devel module, coder, or whatever we need. FAR. FAR is a packaging tool for, I'm not really sure now, for PHP. It just creates FAR files. It's like something similar to Java. Java has jar files that put all the code together in just one package. That's the same for PHP. But I never used it, so I'm not really recommending it. But there is people working with it, with Drupal. Another one is Thing. Thing, maybe you know also from the Java world, Ant. Ant is a system to automatize processes. Also can be used for packaging. It's like a script that will execute different things from different stuff. Like, for example, now execute this command from Drush, download this code and put it here. It's similar to DrupalCamp, but not exactly the same. There's also people using it for Drupal. But what I recommend is an installation profile with a DrupalCamp. Because when someone new arrives, we just have a DrupalCamp file that they can easily download from anywhere. And then they do just a command, DrupalCamp file, and it will download all the things we need, and it will download our installation profile with all our code. A DrupalCamp is a really powerful tool because it doesn't need only to download code from Drupal.org, but can use also our internal repositories like Git code or Subversion, whatever we use. And you can download libraries from using vget, curl, something like that. And it's the best place to store all the patches that our code needs. So we will not need to have a patches folder or a hacked folder with all the hacked modules. And when we download a module, always using DrupalCamp, always use the version. Don't put just the last version or dev version, because it will probably change. And if we are using patches and the version changes, the patch probably will not apply and the project will be broken. Actually, I recommend that if you are using a patch, then you should put not the module version, but the commit ID. So it's exactly the same commit ID. So the deploy. There are lots of different deployments processes. The first one, but all of them have something in common. The first step. And it's strange because a lot of people forget about it, and it's really important. Take a backup. I'm not talking only about database backup, but a backup of the code, a backup of the files folder. Later I will talk about backups because not always is necessary to take a backup from the DB. Actually, it can be a problem more than a solution. We need to have a tool to take backups in the correct moment, not when we do the deploy. Because when we do the deploy, usually, is when we are working, but when we are working is usually when the people is using our project. It's the same time. And the backup DB backup can block the database. That means the website will have problems during the backup. So we have to schedule our backups probably on the times where less people is using the website. The code, the backups is something different, but for DBs, we need to store them and take them on a different moment. And it's also important, a backup is not a real backup till we try it. So the old way of deployments. First step, code update, if we are using a control version, because there's people who doesn't use it, I don't know why. Second step, replicate changes. And then this is the moment when someone's arrived with this full amount of paper with all the changes we manually have to do. If we do a deploy every 2 weeks, this will be a really nice amount of changes, like go to this page, change this view, add this field, go there, update this block, change this content. But I'm sorry, but no, don't do that. Never do that. Because we will never be sure if we have all the changes. I think a few years ago while I was working, we usually use features and a lot of things, but features doesn't cover everything. And instead of trying to find a way to put that on the code, we just put on the task, this task needs to do these changes on the website. Then, when we did the deploy, we just, before the deploy, went to find all the tasks we were deploying, trying to find all the changes we have to manually do, and then do them manually. The problem is, sometimes we didn't find all the tasks, sometimes the developer forgot to add a step, and sometimes the deploy went really, really bad. So, what do we need? What do we need for a deployment system? What it needs to offer us that the old deployment way didn't have? Minimum downtime. That means the project, the live environment shouldn't be inaccessible or unavailable during a while. It means the deploy shouldn't affect the people using the website. And it's possible, even in really, really big projects. Easy rollbacks, because shit happens, always, even if we try to prevent them. So we need to find and have a way to go back easily to the previous step. Automation, because deployments are a pain in the ass. Deployments, it's a task that no one wants to do, because if it goes bad, it's your fault, you have to fix it, and you have to spend 2, 3, 6, 8 hours, whatever. So what steps are needed in a Drupal project in order to do a deploy? First of all, update the code. That's always necessary. Update the DB, because we are applying all the changes that we are doing to the DB in a different step. They are not included on the code. They are included on the code, but they are not applied to the DB till we update the DB using the update script or Drush or whatever. All of this is code we put on installations, hook install, hook update, or new modules we are enabling, because updating the code doesn't enable new modules. Sorry. And then we have to put the config back to the DB. All the config we have stored previously on features, it needs to be put back on the DB. Probably not the best way. Fortunately, Drupal 8 fixed most of it, and it will be much simpler. But that's something we still have to do. So some alternatives to the deployments. I think I'm going quite fast. The Capistrano way. Capistrano, it's a tool developed for Ruby. It works around, and it was developed for Ruby, but it can be used in any kind of project. So how does it work? First, creates a new release. Doesn't update the code directly on the production environment. It just does a full checkout, a full clone of the project on a different folder. Till this is not done, it doesn't switch. Well, then updates the DB in a different environment and then enables the release. That means we have, usually it's a folder where all the different versions are stored, and there is one called current. Current is not a real folder, it's a symlink to the current release working. So we create a new release with all the code. We copy the files folder into the new release. Then we update the settings file so it's pointing to the live environment, and then we update the DB there. Once all the tasks are done, we switch current quickly, because it's just remove a symlink and create a new one. And that takes less than a second. So we have done a deploy really without downtime at all. But it has pros and cons. It's not all gold. Pros is no downtime. Also, it's an easy rollback, because every time we do a deploy, we keep a copy of the previous version, and it's there. And if we have backups from the DB, we can restore them easily and just change again the release to the previous one, and it will be done in 2 seconds. And switch all the projects, almost all the projects, always there are exceptions, but it can be done. It's hard to use, for example, when you have several webheads, web servers, because you have to do it at the same time in all of them, but you only have to update the database in one of them. So not as easy as it might look. It also has some problems. It needs a full release. That means it needs to clone all the code, and it can take some time. Depends always on the project. The project can be done maybe in 1 minute, but there are different projects that takes much time. So at the end, it's just a button, but you have to wait for a while. And that means also the deployments take longer, even if it's a small change, because it's not deploying a change, it's deploying all the code always. So that means it's slow. Even if that doesn't have downtime, it's slow for us. How can I use it? You can use it using Capistrano. But Capistrano is just the project that started this way. There are other different ways. There are bus scripts that are prepared for Drupal projects. I will share these presentations. There are links you can click. And there are also Drush commands. So you can do deployments following the Capistrano way with Drush commands. One is in Drupal.org. I think the project is called Drush Deploy. I think it's done by someone in Akia, or I know the people from Amazi Labs is using it. The second link is one script I create for Drush that is much simpler, and I think it's easier to configure and to do different stuff in different steps of the deployment. So I'm going to use that for a little demo. So I have 2 environments here. This is demo, it's the dev environment, and this is live, it's under URL, live environment. 1 second. It's the color okay? Do you see it? Better? Okay. So I'm going to use the things I talked about before. This is just a Drupal installation. And I have here a profile. It's called DemoCamp. And it's quite simple. It only has makefile, install, info, profile. So I'm going to show you the makefile. So this is just core version. It's quite simple. It doesn't have anything special. And well, as you can see, this profile is here. It's downloaded from Git. And I'm going to add an extra module. I don't know the version. I will check it later. Well, this is the syntax of makefile. As you can see, it's quite simple. Okay, so the version is
where you can find the commit ID?
okay. The commit ID usually hard to find. I usually use drupalcode.org/project. It's almost the same. Oops, it's almost the same path as Drupal project page. You only change the extension, well, the domain, and you add .git.dm. And here you can find the log or the commits. So what I usually do is just download the code from Git, do a Git log, check the date where the patch was committed or was added, so you can see the previous commit, and that's the commit you have to use. And the ID, not sure, let me check. The ID on Git, it's, let me see. Yeah, this is the ID.
Okay.
Yes?
I think it's also very common that the patch applies to the latest release when it's against the. So
Not always.
not always. If
Yeah.
it applies, then you have to check. But what I do is only have the latest release
Mm-hmm.
and not use dev. Yes,
Yeah.
dev has many patches inside.
Yeah.
Use the patches I want, use the release, and when the new release comes out, see these patches were included at the end in this release. So take out the patches.
Mm-hmm.
That applies, needs more investigation.
Yeah, the problem is, for example, there are some projects that didn't have a release in a really long time. For example, views, panels, C-tools. I think they had one a few weeks ago that was a huge improvement because the last one had like 1 year and a half. And those are modules that in 1 year and a half had a lot of development. So if the release has more than 1 month or 2 months, and the dev version has a lot of commits, probably will not apply. It's true, you can, if the patch applies, you could use it, but better if you try it and test it before. So, okay, I think that's all I need here. And now I'm gonna update the install file. Okay, so it's here commented. I'm just gonna enable it. So this just enables the module, so I don't have to do it manually. Okay, so now I'm gonna do a deploy. For the deploy, as I said, I use a custom library I create. It's on GitHub, so you can download it and try it. It's not completely finished, but at least it's working. It's that simple, just dev deploy. I store all the configuration I need for the deployment on the alias. So you can share it. You can, for example, the production alias will be the same for all the team. Also the development stage, whatever number of environments you have. Now it will do a new release following the Capistrano way. It will create a new release from the make file I have here. It might take a while. So do you have any questions about this deployment? Yes?
It's better to...
As I have seen, you are doing the enable of the module on your hook install.
Update.
Yeah, on the hook update.
Yep.
Isn't better to do it on features? Why you did it on the hook update?
Good question. Yeah, you can have like a feature with all the dependencies, maybe, I try to, well, I'm not gonna start a discussion about how we should use features because everyone uses them in a different way. Sometimes pack the feature with all the things necessary for only a part of the site, for example, a view, a content type, and that. I don't do it in that way. They say you should use it in that way because it's easier to reutilize. I don't do it in that way. I usually do it by layers, like for example, fields, then content types, then views. You will not be able to reutilize it, but how many times have you used a feature twice in 2 projects? Never. So, for that reason, I usually don't have like a feature with all the dependencies. I put them on the hook update because it's super simple. It only takes 2 seconds. I think it's more clean. I'm really a bit, oops. I'm quite, I really follow the clean code. I try to make it as clean as possible. So I think it's a good place to put it there. Also because on the hook, you are gonna use hook update because not everything will be exported. So now, okay, the deployment has finished. See if it has go correctly. We will find the demo site will be updated. Yeah. So you can see admin menu has been installed and it's there and enabled. And live environment is still there, no changes. We can do the deploy there too. So, yeah, as you are going to use the hook update, I think it's better to put it there. Also features, I don't like enabling a lot of modules at the same time because usually, even if it supposedly uses a batch API, I think I had a lot of problems with timeouts. So what I usually do is just enabling 1 or 2 modules in each hook update. Because each hook update is a different step of a real batch process. The features just enables them all at the same time.
Another question could be that I think you prefer to do, you have an already site on live, which is in use.
Using this?
No. My question is about if you do some changes on your developed site and you want to deploy them, and some of the changes affect a feature that was deployed before, and also you need to do some changes on like moving some data from one field to another field, something that has a dependency between features and the update.
Okay, I'm going to show you the deployment script. There is a different order of doing things. So I think the first step is you revert the features, then update the code, the DB. I think, I'm not really sure now. Let me check. So here is, well, this is, I have 2 commands. One is only for cloning the site, and it does this. Just make, prepare settings file, files folder, and fix the permissions of all the folders. I usually store the files folder in a different place. So I have the files folder out of Drupal, and then when I do a deploy, I just link the files folder to the new environment. In that way, I don't have to worry about them when I do a deploy, just link them. Here is the full deploy. Yeah, site deploy. So first, I do the setup I did before, take a backup, enable the site. That can be done later, but I do it here. Then this is just a customization, so you can add different things if you have different environments for dev or production, test. For example, we have a test environment where we do execute text things like simple tests and that kind of things. Then update the DB, revert the features, and then do also customization of the environment post update DB. So, yeah, if you had like a migration, you probably will have to do it here. It's hard to, because sometimes you have to update things before reverting features, and sometimes you have to do it later. So it depends on the situation. So I think the deployments will have finished now. That's live environment. Here it is. The deploy has been done. So any more questions about Capistrano? Nope. Okay, then I'm going to talk about different way. This is WBF tools. That's WBFT, not what the fuck, okay? WBF tools is much more than just a code deployment tool or system. How does it work? It uses Jenkins. If you don't know what Jenkins is, it's a continuous integration system that you can configure to do almost anything you need. And what it does small code deploys. It doesn't do a full release. And it's able to do just, if I fix it some small thing, I can just deploy it in just one click. It will deploy it where I need. Those content deploys. So you can have like a stage environment where the people put the content and then you can deploy it to production with just one click. This content deploy is done with the deploy module. Maybe you have heard about. Deploy module deploys content. I don't know why it's called deploy. And uses web services to share content through different environments. You can have production and stage where you send content from a stage to production, and you can have dev environments and local environments load the content from production. But also has pros and cons. No downtime, because it's just really small. Capistrano usually you do deployments from time to time. With this, you do deployments, everything sometimes ready. Small and quick deploys. So it's really, really fast and really, really easy. Capistrano usually has problems with hot fixes. If something's broken on production, you need to deploy it. You can have like a hot fix branch that you can merge. But at the end, it's still doing full deploys. So this is not a problem here because you can create a branch, just do the fix, merge it, and send it to production. And it's fully automated. You don't have to worry about doing the deploys because the deployment system is inside the Drupal project and it has a button that says deploy this. But it's hard to set up. It's quite hard. And it's still a dev version. It's quite hard to set up, that hard that actually the demo will not show how a deployment works. I will only show what the modules are, where they are. Only it has more problems because it's adding a lot of noise inside your Drupal project because it's adding a lot of functionality that you only need for the deploys. It's okay if you are doing content deployments because that's a really good tool to do it, but if you are only doing code deploys, not the best solution because you are adding a lot of things inside your project. So I'm going to do a half demo because I'm not show a real deploy. Okay, forgot this. It's oops. Right. So as I say, this just is a module that you install in your project, in your core, well, not in core, but on your Drupal's project, and it has like integration with Git, integration. It has SSH. It has a lot of things that you usually don't need on a website. it's taking a lot of time. I have this page where I have the modules. So as you can see, I have the base and the environments where you specify which environments you are using. For example, live, dev, stage. Then Gitolite. I'm not really sure if it's necessary to use Gitolite, but it's mostly Git. Jenkins, because it connects to Jenkins using a service. SSH to connect to different environments, and then user to handle users. And if you want to use it, it's probably better if you use the examples that has some generic environments configured, so you can see it. Actually, those examples are not part of the WBF module. They come on an installation profile that actually doesn't work. But you can take those modules, install the dependencies, and actually will work. So the site is set up now. As you can see, we have jobs. I don't see anything. So yeah, digitalized servers where we have our Git, and we have the environment types, we have the job types. A job is a kind of deploy. Mostly you will have 2 or 3 jobs, for example, content deploy and code deploy. But you can have like a job for feature deploy, a job for code update, hook update, or whatever. Everything are entities, so are here on content. And you can actually add fields. You have the jobs, where you can add a new job. And you can have replies. Replies actually is like, when you do a job, you can define what do you need back, and it will send you back all the information. So then that's how you create a job. I cannot show it to you how it works because actually I haven't been able to make it work. But there are videos online from Prague and from other camps where you actually can see it. And that's it. So questions?
What methods are you really using in production sites?
Right now I'm using Capistrano, but actually I'm working on a different project where we have, it's weird because we usually have Drupal as backend and something else as frontend. We are doing something weird, and we have Drupal as frontend and Symfony, Silex as backend. So we are doing the Drupal deploys with the script I have here. And the other part is handled in a different way. But it's special because we have to do it at the same time, and we need to be sure both systems are synchronized, because if not, everything is broken. So I'm actually using the Capistrano way with my script.
With clusters?
Right now,
servers?
we are not using clusters. My script is not prepared to use multiple webheads, but the base script I put there, it was wrote by Pedro González Nightman, and he actually is using it in really big projects.
I answer because we are using Capistrano with clusters, and the scripts that you find in the internet are not prepared to use that with clusters. You must touch so much then, but actually we are really happy with that way to deploy, and really we are not having problems with that. But you must understand that what you find is going to be something only prepared for one server.
Yes, my script here is prepared only for one server right now. It could easily be updated to handle multiple servers, but you also have to understand that your project is yours, and it probably has some specific things that you need to know, and you need to understand what you are using in order to adapt it correctly. My script is prepared so you can customize it. and you can add everything you need in an easy way. This is the script, the base script that uses Nightman. Actually, it's used on the Spanish Drupal Association servers for deployments. It's a base script. I'm not really sure if the script is ready for handling clusters, but I know Pedro used it in other things.
I'm working with Pedro in,
Okay, then.
in moving some scripts in Capistrano to multi clusters in front, several backends as databases. So if someone here want to move to that kind of environment, we have published that in GitHub. So
Nice.
Give me a line.
Or send me the link and I will add it to the slides. More questions? Yep.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but we also use like a layer around Capistrano that we call in our company Didi. And we use, instead of like cap deploy, we use Didi deploy. And it does something like that, but we defined it in Capistrano scripts. And so that way we have separate configuration files for each environment. Like like Capistrano allows you to have separate config files, and that way we can do like then the layer figures out what to do, so then we can do like Didi production deploy, and then it does like all of those things like a feature revert and stuff.
Yep.
I'll try to.
Yep. Sorry. I don't use Capistrano because I think it's unnecessary. I think once you understand how Capistrano works, you can easily replicate it with your own code or something similar. I like Drush because I'm a developer. I'm not a sysadmin, or I'm a developer and I understand PHP. So actually I store the configuration of different environments in different files, and those files are actually Drush aliases, so you can easily share it with anyone. But not only that, the script is prepared so you can add just a file on the folder, and it will load it and use it on the correct environment only when it's needed. So it's the same. Drush deploy live, Drush deploy dev, and it's the same. So yeah, it's important to know your environments, that they are different, and you have to understand the difference between them and actually do different things on different environments. Yep. More questions? Yep.
What do you think is a better approach when you need to deploy something which is not only Drupal, but also something different, like, let's say, changes of code made on a Java client and on an Erlang client or something like that?
Well, Capistrano is ready to be used on a lot of different kind of projects. I didn't have the problem yet, because the part that on our company is not Drupal, I don't handle it. So right now I know that it's just some base scripts used for that, but I didn't have to worry about that. I'm actually trying to move from just a Drush command to Jenkins and to handle everything from there, so we can actually automate it and we don't have to manually launch it from the cell. But I'm not really sure how I will do it. I think first I will have to analyze the project.
I think I can give you a tip, because we are using Jenkins for that.
Okay, that would be nice.
And I can talk about my experience. We have an ANT target that we prepare for deployment, and with take care, man. And with that, what we created is a job on Jenkins, and we use that to deploy. At the end, we split that on 3 different jobs. One is to update the Drupal part. The other is to update the clients, which are made on Erlang. And the other one is to update something that we call AMS, which is made on Java. So at the end, I think it's nice because we split the different approaches, but I don't know if it's something much better than that. I don't know. So
no, I think right now the way to follow is using Jenkins and something like that, a centralized point where you can handle it just with a couple of clicks. I think it's the best way to follow. But the problem is Jenkins only fires the commands and the deployment, so you actually have to write that part.
Yeah.
So I really like Jenkins, and I'm trying to move all things to Jenkins. But the problem is actually you need to understand different parts and prepare the deployments for each part individually.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to, let's say, customize your script.
Of course.
Because you need to do an extra step that you don't really need it always.
Yeah, that's true. Any other question? Nope. Then, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. The closing session is at 1 p.m. on the other room, the big room. So I hope to see you there.